What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Rebel Radio, the weekly show where I talk to the rebels who are shaping youth culture. We find out how they do it, why they do it, and what you can do to get a little piece of the pie for yourself. We're also the only show that features new music every week from our friends over at EDM.com. Check it out. My guest this week is my man Chris Denson. He's the host of the great Innovation Crush podcast. He's also the author of Crushing the Box. New book on shelves now. Do we still have shelves on Amazon now? Whatever. He's going to tell us about his journey from stand-up comedy to corporate life and his rule of speaking up when he sees something wrong. Definitely not enough people doing that in corporate America, and it's a great, Chris has some great stories about that we'll get into right after our EDM.com track of the week. Yo, that was the EDM.com track of the week. That was Willem with Emotion. Get over to EDM.com, check out new music. And now let's get into this interview with Chris Denson.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's...
you mean cool. Yeah. I still think racism is hilarious. There was I think when, like during the election cycle or whatever, Daily Show found this clip of this dude who was being interviewed. Like, when they were tearing the statues down, and it was like, we don't say anything when he was making a good argument until he was like, whatever they want to do on Martin Luther King. I mean, and he chuckled at himself for having said it out loud.
Yeah, because I'm sure he.
I was like, yeah, it's offensive, but that was a good one. And he's like, he laughed at himself. It's like, wow,
that's funny. Is there?
Let me just turn that on. What do you say?
Well, it's like, like comedians like to argue right now that they get to be racist.
Yeah. They get to be funny.
Well,
yeah, I think you can tell like a racially charged joke.
That's what I mean, right? So the comics want to argue that they get like a special license, right?
Right.
They're like, hey, this is my job. I'm being funny.
Yeah.
I get to say shit that you can't say in the office or
Yeah.
or whatever, right?
Yep. Who was it? A couple of comedians arguing like in general, or is it just like you talking about?
No, I just think that's the general narrative, right? And like, they're one of the like. I think most comics are politically progressive, right? Mm-hmm. But yet they're as a group, they're very outspoken about like this political correctness of the moment.
Should watch. I think who did a really good job at it was Tom Segura.
Oh, really?
His last comedy show. His first two comedy shows was hilarious. Right. This one he was like, you know what I miss, and then he just went down all the stuff that he missed being able to say or do or like point out.
Yeah.
He's like, oh man, I really missed that one. So I think now it just probably requires a little bit more finesse.
Well, I feel like Chappelle, like, I don't know if it's on purpose or not.
I think it's real opinions.
But it feels like, because you could, like, he has to be able to know in advance, like, okay, these are the two things that are going to get me in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't care, I'm like.
100%. I think, yeah, of course.
Because in all the new specials, there's like two things in each one.
Was the transgender
right.
one. Because he did it in the first one.
Right.
And then he got the backlash, and then he brought up the backlash, and then he doubled down on it. Like,
exactly.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, let's cut our dicks off and trick dudes into fucking us. Which, I mean, we're not recording yet.
Of course we are. That's how we open the show.
Exactly. let's cut our dicks off on this installment of radio.
Exactly. Well, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this off. Just put in airplane mode.
No, you can take calls. It's fine.
You
We'll
know.
just wait.
Hello? Yep.
You ever have like, I know you've worked in like real jobs,
True.
unlike me, and so you ever have just like people just take a call in the middle of a meeting and be like,
Not like blatantly.
Oh.
I mean, people like get up and like jet. We sell working with Warner Brothers. There's
Yeah.
a really, high up the food chain executive
sure,
who will be in a meet, like we'll set a 90-minute meeting. We'll come 20 minutes late, be
Yeah.
on our phone most of it, and then be like, and just,
I think I know that person.
I was
Yeah,
all right. But
For sure.
not like a hello, yeah, no, two of them. Just like,
yeah. Oh no, that happens. Like in the music business,
oh yeah, nobody.
that would happen all the time.
Yeah.
And then, when I first started my agency and I would hire people like from,
Yeah.
that from the music or whatever. And yeah, it'd be the same thing. You'd be in a meeting and then, big conference room, whatever, and be like, hello? Nah, yeah, I'm gonna have to call you back. But hold on, wait. And like,
Yeah, exactly.
it would go on for like a minute.
Giving the whole
Yeah.
room the one finger.
Exactly.
I think texting is at least it's a little bit more subtle. But even like my wife's brother, like it's not even
Well, he's
just
crazy.
Not even just in meeting sessions.
Right,
You'd be
always.
like, yeah, and then my mom died. Be like, uh-huh.
Yeah, he's bad about
So your
that.
mom died, huh? I mean, like, now it's kind of I lost
Stole my
it.
punchline.
Exactly. You stole the thunder from the conversation.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you, man.
I am excited to talk to you as well.
Well, I'm gonna let you do most of the talking, but I know we got a book coming out.
We do?
Well, you do. I'm the
you
co-sign.
can jump on.
Yeah, I'm gonna co-author the book as of now. What's the book called?
Crushing the Box, 10 Essential Rules for Breaking Essential Rules.
Beautiful. And
I got to figure out an acronym. CTB.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do the rest. TER.
throw in a number.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, see, there you go.
Yeah. It's like a password.
But I've always been fascinated, so I want to hear about the book and what's in it and all that stuff. I've always been fascinated. I was trying to remember how we met, and I don't know.
That's a good question.
But you're married to one of my favorite people, but we met before that
Yep.
somehow or another.
Yeah, I can't remember how we crossed paths.
Yeah.
Because I was like, when she told me, our mutual favorite person, I was like, I know that guy. I was like, yeah, he was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then we ended up hanging out. And
Yeah.
Now here we are.
So I take credit for that.
You should, as you should take credit.
Yeah. So
I might have
anyway,
been on some 10 cane rum stuff. Was that it?
no, I never worked on that.
Oh,
I
all
drank some,
No, right, me too.
but that was about,
Obviously, I was drinking too much of it because I don't remember how we met.
yeah. I don't know, but you always had like, so and then you have this really, I think, an interesting job.
Yep.
That maybe you'll explain what that is.
Yes, I will
And
explain.
but I think your hustle overall is way more interesting than the job.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested to dig into all of it. And then turns out you're a comedian,
Formerly.
engineer,
Yeah.
all kind of other shit
Yes.
going
What a
on.
weird, meandering career path.
Yeah. So let's dig into that. So I always like to start at the beginning, and then kind of how you got to this.
Yeah.
What kind of kid were you?
What kind of kid
Like,
was
were you
I?
into music? Were you into sports? Where did it all start for you?
Probably swimming.
Okay.
This is interesting because, like, my mom grew up in the projects of Detroit, was married for 16 years and then got divorced, had 2 kids before me. And then I was a third. I think I was like, hey, baby, let's reconcile this thing, baby. I think I was that baby. And so, like, I just kind of grew up almost like a only child. Like,
Yeah.
my brother and sister, 12 and 13 years older than me. And so as my mom kind of like left the projects and all that stuff behind. It was, I'm gonna have him do all the stuff that I didn't get a chance to do. Maybe
that's what my son's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. Like, it's always you always want to level up as a parent. You're like, what didn't I get to do? For the majority of my life, from 5 to 20, I was always like the only black person on in swimming of all things. And so I was always kind of
swimming. Can we just talk about swimming in Detroit?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like that's got to be painful.
Yep, that started at the YMCA. Those winter tournaments. You come outside, you like parka is just like frozen stiff. And then we used to go to swim meets in Sandusky, Ohio, Bowling Green. Like it was like regional kind of stuff. So we never escaped the cold.
Just cold as hell.
Exactly. And the swim season goes through winter. So you're like, that's just dumb. Whoever planned this out didn't think it through. But just kind of like, I guess, kind of always having literally been a fish out of water. Not literally a fish, but you know what I'm saying. That would be weird if I was like, something my scales came out. Shape of water. No, so just being that individual is always having like a different perspective and a very unique perspective. Yeah. And I'm kind of just putting this in perspective now that you asked it. And so at the same time, I just like always like jokes. I just always I watch sitcoms, I watch stand-up even to this day. Like that's probably like the majority of my viewing experience is stand-up comedy.
Okay, do you remember the first stand-up you saw live?
First stand-up I saw, well, no, because here's the thing. I don't think I went to a show. When I went to Michigan State, there were signs on campus like, Cedric the Entertainer's coming to campus. We need 2 opening acts. And I was like, ooh, I want to try that. I'm 17, like freshman year, probably like my first semester. And I wrote some jokes and went and auditioned. And, when you audition for like 2 people, they're like this. Like, is that? But a week later, they called me like, yes, we would love for you to, come by and do this. And I was
so you opened for Cedric the Entertainer?
That was my very first time doing stand-up. Probably, and more than likely, my very first time seeing like stand-up. Because I think it was like a month between the time he was coming and the time I auditioned. Yeah. So I just went and did as many shows as I could in the meantime, open mics. I was like, well, I guess I better learn how to actually do it. And so that was kind of like the whole path there.
And what about for the youngsters listening to the show, we have a lot of teenagers who listen, and so before there were comedy specials, there were comedy albums. Right. Yeah. And I grew up. I found them the other day. My stack of comedy records.
I have a box in the garage with CDs and tapes.
What was like your favorite? What was the one that you had on heavy rotation?
Adam Sandler. Like Adam Sandler's tapes were ridiculous. Like his albums were just like, it was like an adventure. It was like a sketch, listening to a sketch comedy show mixed with stand-up, mixed with music, mixed with all. And he was just weird. And it was like, I have a really off-kilter sense of humor. And it was like, it's the more obscure, the more hilarious to me. So he was really obscure. I remember listening to Delirious on a tape. This is an odd story.
Incredible.
I had it blasted. Like I was at home. My mom used to have she was a teacher. So she would, on Wednesdays, she would have these meetings that would go to 6 o'clock. So I'm there cleaning up the house, listening to Eddie Murphy. I must have been 15, 14. And can we cuss on the show?
Yeah, we require it.
Okay. Oh, cool. Fuck yeah. No, he was doing this bit about, not Abbott and Costello, the Honeymooners.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, hey, Norton, come over here and fuck me up the ass. Not that funny of a joke, but that's the exact moment that my mom walked into the house. And it was like blasting. I'm like, I got the vacuum cleaner in my hand. We're like looking at each other like I'm a roach, just caught in, like, do you see me? And she literally took the tape and took the tape out of it.
Oh, is that right?
Yep. And I borrowed it from a friend of mine. So I had to go tell Greg the next day at swim practice, like, hey man, my mom destroyed your tape. So,
wow.
So it was, and not only that, I think she always wanted me to, she kind of had this vision of me, going to work with a briefcase and a suit and lawyer or doctor. And I just really liked humor. So it was kind of like, I kind of grew up with that duality.
Well, it's funny you say it. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that joke, and because it's not that funny now, but at the time,
it was on brand, right?
Well, I'm just saying, the bar keeps changing culturally, right? And we were talking before about this political correct moment that we're in as it relates to comedy. And I think, like the average, you just didn't hear that much cursing or talk about sex, and like there wasn't that much explicit language in our lives. We're cursing on the playground or whatever, but we didn't hear it that much in music the way we do today.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 80s.
Look, I like my first sort of like venture into hip hop, aside from MC Hammer and De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising, was Too Short.
Okay.
And like I just listened to cuss words the other day on Valentine's Day, as a matter of fact.
That's a good Valentine's song.
I texted it to my boy. I was like, Happy Valentine's, and he was like, what? Because he just got married, so it was their first Valentine's Day. That 2 Live Crew.
Yeah.
I mean, it was there. It was just it was harder to access.
But I'm just saying that was the same era, right? Of like Eddie Murphy, Too Short, 2 Live Crew. That was the same era. And before that, like I always say, Eazy-E taught the world that you could cuss on a record.
He sure did.
Because before that, we hadn't really heard
it. That was just cussing, like the subject matter.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't just talk about slapping, like beating up women.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, let's rewind that.
For sure.
Like,
yeah. I don't know how that plays out today. But like,
exactly.
but my point is like, so when we're hearing that honeymooners joke at that age or at that point in history, right? It's like, well, the honeymooners was this iconic, it wasn't like This Is Us or some popular show that like people know about, but it's gonna be gone in a few years, whatever. Like honeymooners was like,
that was it.
It was defining television at that moment, right? And it was clean and all of that. And so to have that, I don't know, I don't want to belabor the point, but like
the juxtaposition of where we were culturally with the shock value.
I'm just saying it's all changed now, right?
Yeah.
And all this stuff has a different meaning today than it does back then.
Yeah. I can see that. It's I think the cultural relevancy and just what shocks us, right? I mean, think of when Howard Stern came out. People were like, "Oh my gosh, like, is this dude actually?" And that was just par for the course, right? It's in some way, I think as a parent sometimes. I want to say, unfortunately, it's par for the course. But as a fan, I'm like, as soon as my daughter gets out of the car, after I drop her off at school, like, it's a whole different mix from my Spotify playlist.
Well, so you have 2 kids, and your daughter's getting to that age where, like, rebellion starts to become. I don't know what's happening in your house, or that's not what I'm asking, but I feel like our generation, like we got our ears pierced, as a self-expression, but also for some people it was a rebellion. It was an act of rebellion, right? And then kids today aren't really boys are not getting their ears pierced, right? Unless they're getting the big gauges and whatever. But like your average kid who's just trying to be cool at the schoolyard, like he's not getting his ears pierced. Tattoos kind of replaced that, and now I feel like tattoos are commonplace, unless now it's like, it's got to be on your face to be like
different
to
enough.
be rebellious, right? And then, but I'm wondering, like, where does that go? Like, where does rebellion, like, how are kids supposed to piss off their parents in 2018?
I think I feel like the hidden things that we used to do is like, oh, I'm gonna go over to Joe's house, and then you go to a party.
Sure.
I would imagine that most of it is digital, right? And it's like, I'm in this part of the internet that you don't know about, right? Like that's where the party happens. And because I think I didn't sneak around a lot. I didn't do all this stuff, but I think our ability to track a kid based on a GPS app that it's like, okay, I know exactly where you are. I thought you told me we were at somebody else's house, or the other day, my daughter had a friend over. My daughter does not have a phone. And we went to the Grove, and they were walking around. I was like, all right, let's meet back here in an hour. But then it was like they would send me text messages, and part of me felt weird. It was like, why am I texting with a 12-year-old girl? Like, it's just strange, right? But it's a longer and safer leash in some ways.
Sure.
But it's just like that hidden rebellion piece just happens, in places that our parents aren't going. But as far as everything else, like she goes to an all-girls STEM school, and she'll come back and like they were twerking in the library. Like it's all still the same sort of, what we used to do is idiotic behavior, or still do. I was twerking them this morning while I was waiting for you. But they almost kicked me out of the lobby.
Oh yeah, they'll do that. It's an anti-twerk zone.
Until the clap started, and they were like, "He did it." Just let him stay.
They don't want amateur twerkers in here.
Exactly.
That's what's up. How far did you get in comedy?
I went all the way to the top, baby.
Yeah.
It's top of the bottom. I went to.
You opened for Cedric the Entertainer as
that was my first step.
It's kind of nowhere to go but down from there.
I did pretty good. I won some comedy competitions. I was on USA Up All Night with Gilbert Gottfried. They flew a bunch of us out to New York. We performed at Radio City Music Hall and just like a bunch of venues in New York.
Yeah.
And then where it changed for me was that I had a friend who was a telecommunications major, and he had access to cameras. And he was like, what if we did a sketch comedy show? And I was like, yeah, let's do a sketch, whatever.
Yeah.
So I started writing sketches, and when we had our first table read, I was like, man, this is it. Just to create something on a piece of, have a vision in your head, throw it on a piece of paper, and then see how it starts to, because we went through the whole casting and assigned roles, and that's when I just fell in love with the whole, almost like the idea of ideas. Let's just make stuff, Humor has always been like my lens. Even today when I'm working on stuff for, a Fortune 50 brand, it's like my brainstorms have a lot of puns. There's a lot of puns on the whiteboard. And it's just but actually that could be something.
Yeah.
So, but between that and then turning that into a writing career, working with Jamie Foxx and Chris Spencer and the Wayans family and, a ton of assignments here and there. Just it was just really cool. Even Kenya Barris, collaborated with him on when he first got his development deal. Just
nice.
Kind of keeping the thing going. The thing about comedy for me was that or stand up in its purest form was that it was a little too repetitive, right? You are literally doing the same set night after night, multiple shows a night, and I didn't want to go on the road. I didn't want to be the starving road comic, and so between those two things, I just kind of left my humor to be a little bit more spontaneous, or at least craft it, put it out, let it go, move on to the next thing.
So was there a moment where you were like, okay, I'm gonna change careers?
It was at the same time at Michigan State, I also was earning the engineering degree. So I have a degree in packaging engineering. Worked at Chrysler, was going to Kokomo, Indiana a couple times a month. Looked that up on Google Earth, you'll be depressed. And then, actually kind of cool, one-horse town, cornfields, one strip club, and then a movie theater.
As long as there's a strip club.
Yeah, as long as there's a strip club. But that was I kept comedy in my pocket, right? I was doing improv. I had one friend who had moved out to LA, and we would just check in probably 2-3 times a week. And then I came out to visit him. And I actually bought one of those, you could order in the mail, the directory of television executives.
Oh, yeah,
$25. And so I ordered one of those, probably sent out 50 sample sketches before I came out here, trying to just be strategic about my time here.
Yeah.
Those 50 got me one meeting.
Okay.
That was, let's say I think I was leaving on
2% by email marketing standards. That's huge.
Thank you. You just reshape that whole part of my past.
I mean, your click-through rate is off the charts.
Exactly. But kind of based on that meeting, it was promising, but it long term it didn't go anywhere. But I was like, I'm moving.
Yeah.
That's it. I've seen LA. I get a feel for it. This is a direction I can head in. And then it was probably 3 months later. I was packed up my Isuzu Rodeo and drove across the country 36 hours.
Nice.
Literally no motel or hotel or anything.
Yeah.
And it kind of laid my head in Hollywood. So, and that was, it was okay. Like most of us, when you first move and you're trying to hustle and do freelance or entrepreneurial work, it was eventful. I worked as a personal trainer.
Okay.
I was doing events, but 8 months after I moved here, I got a job working at BT.
Okay.
That's where I met all those guys that and girls and got a chance to work on those other things. You know, one guy worked for the Wayans family since the days of In Living Color.
Oh, wow.
You know, Kenya Barris was our writing assistant at the, at the time. So it was a good just mix of people who are like still like making dope moves today. And you know, so 8 months not bad after moving from the Midwest.
Yeah.
You know.
So if you're making your way through entertainment business, why would you get into marketing advertising? Why would anyone
It's
do
an
that?
odd natural progression. So, you know, obviously from stand-up got into writing.
Yeah.
From writing got into production, right? I was working on music videos and like just helping bring stuff to life. I got a chance to launch a hip-hop network with Playboy at a point in time called Hype TV.
Oh, okay.
And was an associate producer on there. And we were, because we were partnering with Playboy, they went out and shot this commercial. And they were like, hey, look at our commercial. And it was awful. I actually ran into one of the guys who worked on it a couple days ago, and I was like, "Sorry if I'm being too honest, but basically raised my hand. It's like I can take a stab at this if you want me to, you know, because it was a small team anyway, and you know, small teams you wear a ton of different hats, which is kind of the gift and the curse depending on the scenario. And in that scenario, it actually worked. So I was doing websites, partnerships, you know, shot new spots. I didn't know what I was doing per se, like but you surround yourself with the right photographers, all that, you know, the right resources.
Yeah.
And it came out really well. I still have like a couple of the print ads and frames, you know, at home. And what I started to see as an evolution was like, you know, developing a concept from a nugget, whether it's a joke you have in your head and you're like, oh, that could work if I framed it this way, to putting it out and kind of like putting the message that this thing exists out. You know who the audience you're creating for, or even if it's just an audience of one, right. You know?
Yeah.
And then I think that coupled with getting fired from jobs, or like at BET, they fired the entire writing staff like with zero notice. Yeah. But I learned to go like, I need to make sure I have food on the table. So I was just doing other things to kind of pay the rent.
Talk about, so you see this bad commercial. It's hard to imagine that Playboy can't make a good hip hop commercial.
You'd be surprised.
As hip hop as
there was a guy with a fur coat and no shirt on who was not a rapper. He looked like cannabis.
I'm actually not surprised at all that company wouldn't understand hip hop. That's really their world. Mm-hmm. But no. So talk about that. You see this bad commercial and you spoke up. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think in corporate America, all you have to do is watch TV and realize that most people don't speak up when they see a bad commercial being made, because there's a lot of bad.
Oh yeah.
Right. And but it's a very, you know, in the environment of corporate America, it's very like people don't say what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So where'd that come from for you? Like, how did you?
That's a good question. You know, if I want to be deep, you know, it's probably just growing up as a semi-single, you know, only child. My mom was definitely like, she was an explorer of sorts. Like, you know, I think once she was liberated at 33 from her marriage and kind of like starting life over, she was always taking classes and like learning about her money and like doing belly dance, like just all sorts of stuff while teaching. And so we would just have conversation. You know, I remember like when she bought a house, she was asking me about like, how much money does it cost? You know, plus it's a black woman from Detroit. Like, you kind of don't take no shorts, right? I think the difference for me was, you know, learning the finesse. I don't think I always would have spoken up, you know, learning how to say this is bad without being like, this is awful. Yeah. Let me do it. Right. Like, you know, there's a language and a way that you can diss somebody without making them feel this. And I've seen, you know, and I think you also, I look at a lot of things that have happened in my life, or just a conversation like this, as mentor moments, right? There's always something I pick up from our dialogue. Even the fact that you asked me that question is like, forcing me another layer of depth, and that layer of depth is going to probably stick with me in other situations. Sure. But you know, and I've always just been sort of an observer. Yeah. You know, I think even that sort of semi-only child thing, It's like you kind of like watch with, like, you're not playing with your brother or sister,
Right.
You know, you're not distracted by another sibling. It's like, what's that? You know, instead of twiddling your thumbs.
Yeah.
So that's probably, you know, has something to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you keep that? Like, so now you work for big company, and you know, I don't I don't know exactly what the job entails, but I imagine, like.
Let me tell you, Josh.
Yeah, you tell us all about it. But no, so I'm interested to hear about you know, what you're doing, and but have you kept that, right? Can you still speak up?
Yeah, I think what probably, and I would say relatively recently, I've just learned to be myself, right? There was a period of time where, you know, I told you about the puns on the whiteboard, where I was afraid to be humorous in a corporate setting, right? It's because even that, it's kind of comes from childhood, where, you know, you are the only black kid on the swim team.
Right.
Your parent is going to say, hey, be careful of how you act, because they're going to think of you this way, right? Yeah. So I think I carried some of that with me, and not being able to, like, so I think eventually I just learned to be all of who I am in any given scenario.
Did you see the Wanda special, the last one?
No, I've heard about it. I heard it was amazing.
It's so good. But she has a thing talking about when Obama became president, she went out and bought a bunch of watermelon. And she was like, this is the first time in my life when I would eat watermelon in front of white people. And, like, I mean, it's hilarious. You know, I'm not doing it justice, but but I think to some extent we all go through that, having to figure out how to be who we are. Right.
Yeah.
And being comfortable, especially, I think, and I don't mean to be so down on corporate America, but I think it's designed to kind of take people's individuality out of them and create more. Like, you got to get a lot of people moving in the same direction.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I mean, it's a machine, right?
Yeah.
It's like these giant companies aren't like, they're well-oiled machines. And, you know, sometimes they need a little extra grease, but for the most part, it's like, this is how we do things, and that's what I'm teaching you, our method.
Our method,
right?
Yeah.
And
so can you point to? You say you sort of figured that out recently. Was there moments when you realized that? Or you realized you were losing a part of yourself?
I think there was a period of time where I just wasn't happy, right? Like, I was doing cool stuff. Matter of fact, I remember I was working at the American Film Institute's Digital Content Lab. Okay. And it was like a think tank for marriages of technology and entertainment, and we were like building stuff all the time. And I just remember thinking, like, I haven't spread my wings, and I don't know how to get myself in that position. I remember I had a friend who, his dad was a salesperson, so he used to travel with his dad, and his dad would be listening to, like, Wayne Dyer tapes in the car. And I remember making fun of him for listening to Wayne Dyer and Eckhart Tolle and blah, blah, blah. And I remember I stumbled upon a video of Wayne Dyer's, and he said whatever was that 30 seconds that I saw was, like, exactly what I had been thinking about, and I just went down the rabbit hole. Right. And it was probably like a good year or two worth of time where I was like it was just like, you know, your head kind of explodes in a way, like, oh, I didn't even know this was a way to see the world, right? And as a matter of fact, part of my tattoo says, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will begin to change. And that's my one constant reminder, like, no matter what situation I'm in, whether it's difficulty at home or trying to figure out how to launch a new product, or, you know, interview somebody on my show in a way that nobody else has ever been interviewed, I'm always like, how can I look at this from other perspectives and other angles? And I think, you know, you mentioned, like, the audience for Ripple Radio. It's like, we are a multi-hyphenate culture, right? You know, thanks to social media, like, oh, I didn't know Josh also liked horseback riding, like, and was a Frisbee champion. Like, I may know you through one narrow lens.
I am a Frisbee champion.
I know.
But I'm Frisbee on horseback.
That's yes.
That's my
with
shit.
your shirt off.
Yeah, of course.
I've always said I wanted to have a horse, and like I want to leave a nightclub and whistle, and my horse comes from around the corner, and I get on, I'm like, all right, and then just take off. And they're like, remember that dude?
You don't go clubbing a lot.
I won't after that. They're like, remember that time that dude left on the horse? Like, that would be a story for at least a few people for generations. My grandfather once told me about a man who left a nightclub on a horse. But yeah, that was it was that kind of point of discovery, and even after that, it still took work. It still takes work.
Yeah,
it still takes work to be cognizant of who you are, in a room. And I think most of us, especially, you think about a golden opportunity, to work with an artist or a celebrity or a company that you really admire, and you're like, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to be?
Of course.
Like I'm whatever you. As opposed to saying like, I'm adding value to your situation because of all my personal and work life history and my perspective is actually valuable here versus the other way around. It's like, you're value to me because now like it's gonna be good on my resume. Like
right.
kind of two steps ahead and out of the moment.
Of course.
Yeah.
So let's talk about innovation. You work for kind of an innovation agency, if I understand it correctly.
Yes.
And you have Innovation Crush.
Yes.
I really enjoy listening to your show. It's cool because we interview some of the same guests.
Mm-hmm.
Now
I just have to interview myself.
Exactly. But even that, like, you take a very different approach than I do. Mm-hmm. And so it's fun. Like I was listening to Brent Bushnell episode, and I had him on the show, and so it's just you come at it in a really different way, which is it's fun for me. So I love the show, and now you have a book about innovation.
Yes.
Why?
Why do I have all these things? Why what?
Why why innovation?
This is gonna sound totally like jerky, but I do feel like it's a lifeblood of
Do
society.
it in a different voice then.
I do feel like it's lifeblood. I haven't practiced many of my voices, so you threw me off.
I've been doing when I read to my son at night.
Yeah.
I try to do all the characters in different voices.
Yes.
And I don't do a very good job of it, but he's really lenient with me. And sometimes, a couple times he's mentioned it, and I'm like, "Oh, you want me to stop?" He's like, "No, do the voices."
Yeah. So what? Let's hear one.
No, I don't.
I got a children's book or something.
Yeah, if you have one.
When I do my readings, every time I do it, every paragraph, I'm just switch accents. You're like, what are you talking about?
You should definitely do that.
No, but I believe, I kind of my little anecdote is like whether you're a parent trying to figure out a different way to communicate to your kids or you're the CEO of Coca-Cola trying to stay on top.
Yeah.
It requires some re-engineering of how you do things and how you see the world. Even in the book, or in these interviews, is as much of a life lesson as it is business tactics.
Yeah.
And I think most of us want to evolve in some way. And, and it's kind of like, what got you here won't get you there. Mm-hmm. So no matter where you've gotten, it's like, you've gotten there by doing things you know how to do.
Yeah.
And then, so how do you become curious and exploratory enough to continually try different things? Whether it's like obliteration kind of disruption, whether it's Airbnb or Uber, is like, oh, well, how do we handle this rent situation in Venice? Because you can't just rent out your apartment. And you're like, yes, I can. Yeah. Well, we need to write some laws about it. Like that is, or if it's just like, oh, I've never seen a billboard like that.
Right.
It just requires like these skill sets. And so, and for me, it's like, almost look at everything as an experience in a story, right? It's storytelling to some extent. Every brand is telling a story, every product is telling a story or tries to appeal to you in some emotional way. Yeah. And so how do we allow people to experience that story? So my innovation lens is usually like through marketing and storytelling. It's like, oh, well, people love doing X, or here's the insight that we know about society and culture, and here's something that's leaning in that direction in a way that we haven't seen before. And then you start to combine and compare and like make hodgepodge of it all. Yeah.
So you've been doing it a few years now.
Yes.
The podcast and the job, and kind of immersed in innovation.
Yeah.
What have you learned about innovation that's
No, well, by the way, for clarity's sake, the job thing, it's Omnicom Media Group, Ignition Factory.
Right.
Out of 10,000 employees around the world, there's 20 of us who are responsible for emerging technology, emerging platforms, culture. 50% of what we do is education. Like, hey, here's trends and insights and POVs on things that are happening in the world. The other 50% is turning those into products, marketing moments, services. So, if we do our job well, we're doing like a lot of first evers and award-winning, if not award-worthy work. We don't always get there, but but that's that's sort of the goal. So I kind of look at myself as like an Anthony Bourdain, right? Like one part sort of storyteller, and I'm presenting these worlds to you via an innovation crush, and the other part is actually like I still have my hands in the kitchen and like cooking, right, and still making things.
I mean, I think that's such an interesting job, and I'm friends with the guy who was in the job before you.
Yep.
And he used to tell me, like, there was one client that, he would come to him every 6 months or however often with the more of the education side. Mm-hmm. And he said the CEO would always say, like, this is brilliant. I love you guys. I'm never going to do any of it, but keep coming in. And I think, like, I just thought, like, what a fucking great business to be in, right? Where, like, obviously at some point it's about selling stuff and making money and all that. But on the other hand, like to be able to kind of flex creatively and share your knowledge and not always have it be, about the transaction. Yeah. Which, for most of us in business, right, and certainly in the agency business, like you're just trying to sell the next thing.
Yeah. Look, therein lies like a duality, right? Because it's for some, it's frustrating that you do the work and you go and like give the ideas and the education, and they're like,
right,
that's really smart. I look at it as I just want to like I've always looked at my job as like I want to turn on a switch in somebody.
Yeah,
like you can't unknow something. So if I go in and tell you about artificial intelligence or AR or daybreak or dance parties. So I always say innovation is never synonymous with technology, right? It's just could be something that's new and refreshed. That is something like you just don't know the domino effect that happens. That same CEO might go tell his wife or somebody else on another team about, hey, I heard about this thing, and then that person goes and does something with it, and you never see the light of day. You're like, there was matter of fact, I went and visited a client last week, and we were kind of re-engaging with them. We hadn't worked with them for about a year plus. And they were like, we always loved when you guys came here. You would tell us about things, and then 2 or 3 years later, we'd see it. And you're like, like that's kind of the journey. And it's funny. Two things. One is like sometimes when I give talks, I'll do anti-case studies. Right? I'll show you one case study, and then I'll show you 20 other ideas that did not happen for that same project for instance, we did for Suicide Squad. We did this tattoo parlor at South by a couple years ago, and South Adweek wrote it up as one of the top 5 things that happened at South by. We had a line around the block every day. People were getting real tattoos. A lot of them it was their first tattoo, and it was just kind of cool. And I showed that case study, and then I showed the deck of ideas that we had also pitched, and that idea was okay by comparison, right? So then you get into like the business goals, the objectives, what people have an appetite for, like knowing no matter how great your idea is, I'm always talking to a person. I need to appeal to you, not make you think the idea is cool. So, there's all these like little nuances that people forget. And I don't want to be like, look at all my amazing case study work. Like there's some multiple failures in different states. And when you ask me sort of like, I think it was what does innovation take or something like that, or what are some things that are in common? One of the first things that always jumps out to me is this idea of loneliness, right? Because especially if you see the world or an idea or a thing a certain way that nobody else sees it, and you gotta and you feel passionate enough about it to hunker down and try to make it happen. People are gonna be like, okay, that's cool. So let's talk about this other stuff, or think about entrepreneurs that go to investors meetings. Like how many investors meetings do you have to go to until you're constantly recalibrating your presentation and like trying to take feedback, but some of that feedback doesn't necessarily agree with you,
Right.
but you trust the individual, and you're like, I don't want to. So it's you and your vision, and slowly but surely, like, you know, if it's good enough, people start to jump on board with it, right? And suddenly you've built an army. I'm sure, like, Travis Kalanick was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make everybody a taxi driver. You're like, okay, cool,
Right. Sure.
right? So, so that's one of the things that stands out as like a real difficulty that innovators, quote unquote, face.
What's been the biggest surprise to you since you started, let's say, the podcast?
I guess just the overall response. I think that, you know, again, when I feel like part of my job as on the host side and the Innovation Crush side is like to really humanize these stories.
Yeah.
You know, like I interviewed Sugar Ray Leonard, right? And, you know, most people will go like, yeah, hey, champ, you're the champ. And it's like, everybody celebrates you as a champ. Tell me about like the people you surround yourself with.
Right.
And then he starts talking about nutritionists and trainers and people like taking hamburgers out of his hand. It's not just him like doing push-ups all day and punching a punching bag.
Sure.
It's like, hey man, you can't like, there's a huge committee of soundboards and people who have responsibility in the goal. And I think when I draw a parallel, I can say he's like a CEO or a founder or an entrepreneur within the company. It's like you got to have other people helping you be who you are.
Yeah.
You know, on that journey. I don't know if that answers your question because I got lost in my own head.
No, I think that's interesting, and it's like I was hanging out with some pro race car drivers, and they were saying that pros today, they have to start at 5 driving cars.
Oh yeah.
Driving the go-karts.
5 years old?
5 years old.
Hmm.
Because you have to get you need the muscle memory, right?
Right.
To learn the mechanics of driving a car, and then by 10.
I had my son pick me up from work.
Exactly. So they start them out on the go-karts, and then by 10, they're in a bigger car. And they said from 10 to like, you know, through your teen years, what you're learning is how to manage your team. Mm-hmm. And because you have mechanics and engineers and whatever, you know, there's 10 people on a race team. And you, as the driver, you're the captain. Mm-hmm. And you have to, and so they said like...
Look at me. I'm the captain.
Pretty much.
That's if I drove a race car. That's from the Pirate movie with Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
Look at me.
I don't know.
I'm the captain. Come on, man. You know.
Oh, I see that movie. I'm sure it was great, though. Sorry to ruin
Told you it's a
your
lonely
reference.
journey. It's just I saw something in a certain way. Nobody else saw it.
So that's the thing, you know, people like that are, you know, so you're a kid, you got to become the CEO, right? And you have to be a leader, and your team's relying on you, you're relying on them, and there's all that. And if you're a boxing champion, it's the same thing.
Yeah, look, you're anybody. I mean, I interviewed the CEO of Virgin Galactic. Right?
Yeah.
It's like he's managing a whole bunch of stuff, but it's like,
sure.
I think we also live in such a headline culture right now. You know, it's like, I read the headline, I get the whole story, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, here's 5 things you need to know. And you're like, all right, now I know all the 5 things.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
Yeah.
And it's not always as simple as that.
Yeah. So you got this cool job, you got the podcast, you got 2 kids.
Yes.
You got,
have all those
I
things.
know you're speaking all over the place, conferences and all that. How was there time to write a book?
Is there ever any time to do all the things you want to do?
No.
It's like, I mean, the process was pretty arduous. I mean, it's been 7 months, you know, of just hard labor, do it when you can.
Yeah.
You know, constant work-life balance and juggling. Like, all right, can't work on that today. Got to go to the fill in the blank.
Right.
You know, I think having good teams in place, right? I think like Ignition Factory, shout out to that whole crew. Like it's a stellar group of people. Luckily, I can check in and be hands-on where needed, but not necessarily like in the trenches, you know, 100% of my time. But also, it was a little bit of a cheat because it's like anecdotes and takeaways from interviews. So it's like a lot of the stuff that I knew.
Right.
And it's still like, even though it's done, it's not done. Like like every time I look at it, I'm like, I should have said, I should have changed this line, or just did. It's like I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a documentary filmmaker, And we were just having this conversation about like how it's never done.
Right.
So, I've adopted this mindset, kind of in my personal shift was, done is better than perfect.
Uh-huh.
And I think I'm definitely like, I will put stuff out in the world. I'm sure, even just from doing the show, it's like, I didn't get to answer that question,
Right.
or he said something the way that nobody will understand.
Right.
And you find like most times the episodes that I like the least, tend to do well.
Uh-huh.
It's like, oh, that was a bad interview. I was
Right.
like, oh. And you're like, I love the conversation you had with such and such. You're like, oh, you did? What's wrong with you? So, I had to go at some point. It's good enough. Right?
Uh-huh.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but and hopefully people will like enjoy it.
Yeah. How? I think some people in working at a big corporation, a lot of people assume they have to. A lot of people would be afraid to kind of take on as much as you have outside of that, right? For like. Big companies are a lot of fiefdoms and a lot of people trying to like play politics and so how do you think about that?
I had to think about. So I had a manager for a couple of years, and I was having that very thing. I was like, well, I'm this person here, and he said, your name is your name. Like no matter where you go, right?
Yeah.
And obviously it has a little bit more depth to it than the line in and of itself. And for me, Innovation Crush becomes a feeder for work that I want to do with OMD. Like a lot of the individuals that I've talked to, or the organizations that I profiled, or whatever, have become collaborators in some way. So it kind of, in that ecosystem, it kind of just becomes a fishing exercise. Or if I want to book a speaker for something that we're doing at CES through OMD, I was like, hey, you want to come do this thing? Are you going to be like, it's relationships. It's all under, a specific umbrella. For me, innovation, and I know it's such a broad term and kind of doesn't mean anything in a lot of circles. Sure. But it's like, who are really smart creators that are doing things that are valuable for culture, right? And whether we're dealing on the work side with a Pepsi or a Wells Fargo, it's like I can start to plug and place pieces there. And I think it's, at some point I had to be willing to burn the midnight oil. You know, I think with the book process, I will tell you, when I was at CES, I was giving tours. I was producing an event. And my publisher was like, "Hey, we need your notes on the manuscript back," which in a Word document was 173 pages.
Right.
So I'm like, "There's no way I'm a." Yeah. And sure enough, I was like, "This is what I chose."
Yeah.
And I was like, so literally up till 1 a.m, getting up at 4. It was like in Las Vegas, walking 7-8 miles, and in my mind, I had to reconcile with that, because I was like, it's temporary, right? This level of output it's for this moment in time, right? There will be a recoil, and I will get the rest I need, and be as attentive as I need to be in the areas that I'm missing out on. Right. So, and it's also just being careful, being mindful that there is a gray area in terms of what Innovation Crush becomes. You asked me earlier, just what surprises have happened. I was going on the personal side, and I interviewed Chameleonaire. Somebody wrote me a letter. I was like, I listened to your Chameleonaire interview, and I quit smoking. I'm like, okay. Nice. It was one line in there. He talked about why he doesn't smoke or drink. Yeah. And let alone forget about Maker Studios, entrepreneur, all that other stuff. They found that one nugget. But the other surprise is just how it started to resonate. So having worked with the White House, or South by Southwest, or C2 Montreal, or any number of places, I'm always surprised where hey, can you come do this thing here? And I'm like, really? You want? Okay. So the fact that it resonates in a way where people find value. I think part of me, my wife is always like, of course they want to work with you. But in my mind, I'm like, but.
Whenever I talk to somebody that listens to the show, I can never believe it.
Yeah, man, exactly.
Really?
It's a really weird thing. Yeah. Oprah said this was, somebody asked her once, she was like, what's the most common thing people tell you when they, after you interview them? And she's like, she said is, how was it? Did I do good? Like, was it good enough? Right.
Yeah.
And obviously she's profiling some of the best people you can find on the planet.
Yeah.
And their insecurity starts to come through. Like, what was it good enough? And every episode, I just published an episode this morning, and I was like, gee.
Sure.
And it's episode 180.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
nice.
I'm still like feeling like a kid. Like, are you guys gonna like this one?
What's changed about how you do the show since you started?
I'm keeping it day one.
Yeah.
No, I think, I don't know. Comfort, maybe? That's a good question. I mean, I kind of stuck to my format. It's weird when I think I probably would have started with some different things had I had more resources. Like I would have had a different type of production value to it. Would have felt like a little more, just some nuances and things I would have done. But I settled into, my comfort zone.
Yeah.
What's changed, if anything, is just like I want to evolve it.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the reason I wrote the book, is just like, what else can we do with this brand?
Yeah.
Right. Can we start to create more video, and I can talk to Virgin Galactic about the world, in an audio format, but it's another thing to go to New Mexico and walk around that facility and try on a spacesuit and push buttons and and kick over stuff.
Yeah.
I took my team to meet. We went to JPL, NASA's JPL.
Nice.
And my running joke, which got really annoying quickly, I was referring to everything as a space version of whatever it was. So like, look, a space garbage can. Look, space table. A space table.
I'm sure they appreciated that.
Exactly. Space stairs. Like everything was space. So that's probably why I don't have a visual show. Because of that.
Maybe you will.
Maybe I will.
You need sight gags.
Space stairs. But yeah, as far as what's changed, it's, more money, more problems, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
I think the caliber of interviewee is kind of, I think what's about to happen throughout the rest of this year is I'm really excited about, like, just people I never thought I'd get a chance to, like, sit down with, right?
Yeah.
It's cool. And it kind of, that happens every now and then, but, like, it's, like, looking pretty consistent.
Nice.
So.
What, I know you travel to a lot of conferences.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like every time I go to a conference, people sit around and complain about how bad the conference is.
Yeah.
That's like the...
Yep. I hate going to South by Southwest. So too many people.
Or like the one I get...
Conference.
The South by thing, like, I think it was Ad Week last week. There was like all these people speaking out on how it's gone downhill.
Yeah.
And all the people quoted were like these agency suits saying like it's all a bunch of suits now.
Right. Yeah.
Like you are the reason.
You're the problem.
That you don't like it. That wasn't my question.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It was a good anecdote.
What are the best events out there?
Ooh, the best ones. Worlds is good.
Yeah.
It's just kind of fresh because I'm actually partnered with them on the book launch.
Oh, nice.
So shout out to Worlds. But
Roman's been on the show. He's
great. Yeah. Roman's the man.
Yeah.
I think I really like C2
in
Montreal.
Yeah.
Which C2 is creativity and commerce. The reason I like it is that as much as this, because you go to network, right? So a lot of times, like last time I ran into you was at a Worlds event.
Yeah.
And it was like, and we hung out for like a long time, and like you kind of like get a chance to reconnect with people,
right?
And meet new ones. But C2, in addition to that, also it's just like a visual spectacle. So they partnered with Cirque du Soleil. So when you walk in, like you're literally like, so you're automatically in a mindset and a physical environment you've been transported.
That's cool.
So you're ready to just, what's next, right?
Yeah.
They had a conference room, like a floating conference room.
Uh-huh.
So it was like literally like a net elevated above the ground with chairs on it, and the chairs were floating above and that's how you could have your meeting.
Wow.
I did interviews there, and they actually built out a thing that they call the aquarium, which is like a giant glass cube. Sitting in the middle of like one of the halls of the floor, and it's got like content on all the sides, and then we were projecting sound out into the common area. It's just everything sort of like you're taken out of your element.
Yeah.
And I think, for at least for my purposes of innovation, like that's what I want to do. I want to take people out of their normal day to day.
Yeah.
That, and then like I think the usual ones that people do complain about, the Consumer Electronics Show.
Yeah.
You know, Comic-Con. You know, it's like, I think anything that grows over time. I mean, CES has been around over 50 years now, so.
Sure.
It's never going to be like it was or like you remembered it. Comic-Con, like if I'm a comic book nerd, it's like, well, there's too many movie promotions there. It's like, those are the movies you like. Like, what do you know?
Right.
So it's...
I mean, it seems like events especially are in that business where as soon as you start making money, like everyone's mad at you.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone loves it at the beginning because they think they're discovering it. And then they love to say that it's jumped the shark, whether it's Coach. You know, they've been saying that about Coachella for 10
sold
years.
out. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But yeah, it gets bigger every year.
Yeah.
Right? And you know, South by is the same thing. And
I think you'll find purists in most, like in any area that you go to. It's
Yeah.
like for instance, I studied martial arts for a long time. I kind of hate mixed martial arts because
because it's not.
Yeah, it's like this is just like Monster Energy drink stuff,
Yeah.
right? And of course, I welcome any challenges to any fighters out there. But yeah, it's like, but I know I'm in my head.
We're gonna start having fight night, Rebel
should, that'd
Radio
be dope.
fight night.
Yes,
It's an interview and a fight.
like just a pit.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was a shoot fighter, in which basically you go down in a hole and like one person comes up.
So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna ask y'all questions while you're fighting.
Yeah.
And like,
7. Have you ever heard of chess boxing?
yes.
So that's pretty much what that is.
Yeah.
Like move a chess and then box for 3 minutes.
Love it.
Now I forgot what the question was, but this is fun.
Great events.
Yeah.
C2.
And more people where people
Worlds.
complain and do that sort of stuff. I think it's your responsibility to make of any environment what you can. You know,
Yeah.
There was an article in Forbes recently that talked about how some of the best innovation comes from constraint. Mm-hmm. And it is like when you don't have enough time, money, or
Right.
it's an unfavorable set of circumstances,
Sure.
and it requires, some ingenuity in order to achieve the result. And I think if I'm thrust into a home and garden show,
Right.
it's like I'm gonna find the thing that's resonating or valuable.
Yeah.
You have to go seek it out. Right? You have to kind of be deliberate about the time you want to have it, and you also have to just be open to whatever that environment is. Like
Sure.
you're married. I'm sure, just like my wife is like, hey, we're going to this thing on Saturday. I'm like, I don't want to go to that at all. Matter of fact, we went to this one thing, and it was like, yeah, it's this musician who's going around doing like living room tours.
Oh yeah.
James Landman.
Okay.
And
Sounds cool.
I was super relaxed. Like it was like gonna be 10 people. I didn't feel like being social that night.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
whatever
yeah, yeah.
my
Sure.
event complaint was.
Yeah.
I was like, and I went, and I was like, knowing that there's I'm also open at the same, even despite my complaints. I'm like, all right, let me just go see what. I was blown away. I was like, please come be on my show. Like I thought, like
That's cool.
He was super talented. So just being open to wherever you're going.
Yeah, I'm not good at that. Like my wife, I mean, she tries to like, oh, this is something that's out of your, comfort zone. So you'll enjoy it. Like she has this, she's the eternal optimist. She's always like, you don't know you're going to enjoy this, but you're going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I never enjoy it. And I'm always like, I already know I'm going to hate it and I'm not going.
I've been there too.
And, she keeps trying though.
Especially when it's like, for me, with us, it's the music events. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, there's this artist I like, and I was like, I'll go, and I'm like, I'm not enjoying this at all. And on occasion, there'll be a pleasant surprise. But for the most part, I'm like, what can we?
That doesn't have to be. I'm like, have somebody take my ticket because you're gonna have a better time without me there. Because
That's what alcohol's for, though.
Yeah.
I'm going back to the bar. I'll be back.
Right. Exactly. That's funny. All right. I have a.
You want to send me a text message for
Yeah.
this question? Hold on, let me
Exactly.
turn my phone off.
We're gonna take a.
to be respectful of you.
I have a lightning round for you.
I'm ready for it. For the audio version, I'm drinking water, just in case anybody. That wasn't like refreshing. That
Thanks for
we're doing a
letting us
lightning
know.
round. But all right.
You say that's water. Tell me one decision that changed your life forever.
one decision that's changed my life forever. I want to say I was gonna say marriage, but it seems too easy.
No one says that.
Really?
You might be the first if you. I'm not gonna hold you to that.
Good. I'm in the job of being first. So, because I think, so I had my daughter out of wedlock, right? So, but she became a full-time dad pretty quickly, and I was very hesitant to like date and expose, my daughter to let's take your daughter to Disney. Like, no, I don't know you like that.
Yeah.
And so when my wife and I were dating, that meeting happened by accident. But I got a glimpse into like, oh, my life could be easier. Not like I'm using her in any way, but I got a glimpse of like, oh, this is what it's like, coming from a divorce, like a split family home, then being a single dad myself, like not really having an example of like what it's like to be in a. But I also think, something that happens when two people come together, whether they're founders of a company or like in matrimony, that biblically you talk about being a helpmate, right? Okay. So everything you do as a couple should be for the greater good. And was it like almost like an interdependence, right? Like, where
that's some Stephen Covey shit, right?
See, there you go. Is having somebody that can just be a sounding board, or at least in our house is like all my dumb jokes that happen all day long.
Yeah.
So like we were watching the Olympics last night and somebody fell like ice skating, and I rewound it like 4 times. They fall, but this fall in particular was hilarious. So she's like, okay, stop rewinding it. But but I think at home is probably where I most fully express myself. And I'm like, actually, that's a good. There's a show idea that I pitched. It's all about a blaxploitation martial arts star. And that started because of a party that we threw together. We did a Halloween party a few years back, and it was called Rock the Mic. Okay. But you had to come dressed as any version of a Mike. Nice. Michael Jackson, nice. Mike Ditka, which is who she was. I was, I forget who, I forgot what it was. But I dressed up in this karate, but I gave this character like a whole backstory, and I just joking around in the car on the thing. And I was like, I'm writing this. And I literally like wrote a treatment like that next day. But that came from home, so that ability to just build together.
That's cool.
And I don't know. You have somebody to watch the kids when I have to
go places. That's important. Man, I've been trying to get my son to watch The Last Dragon. He won't. He don't want to see it for some reason.
I'll make him watch it.
So I wish you would. So it's such a good movie.
Sit down.
That's such a great movie, man.
Where'd that come from?
Oh, you're talking about karate blaxploitation movies?
Yeah. No,
I mean, that's not exactly.
Are they supposed to be remaking it? I thought.
Are they?
I don't know.
Jaden Smith?
Could have just started a whole rumor.
That's
I
like
thought he was great in the Karate Kid.
I didn't see it.
What movies have you seen? I'm talking. Come on with the.
I saw Black Panther.
Cool.
That was my shit.
Everybody saw that one.
Yeah.
No, The Last Dragon is like a perfect movie. So when I moved to Hollywood, funny story is that Timok, the star of the movie, lived in my building.
Oh, no way.
Yep. So I was like, hey, this is like my first celebrity sighting.
And you're like, aren't you supposed to be richer?
Exactly. Well, it was a building of studio and 1-bedroom apartments.
Exactly.
Like, oh, what happened?
I lived in or my ex lived in a building that was a little bit nicer than that, but.
Oh, you dissed my building. You don't know. It was a nice building.
No, I know where you lived.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
But Kumo D moved in downstairs. And I used to see him in the elevator. It was like, and actually my ex had met him and she didn't really know who he was. She's like, oh, this is Mo.
I thought he used to live down.
Because he didn't have the same glass.
129th Street.
We don't have a 129th Street in LA.
Those are lyrics from a Kumo D song, Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
The way, like you say, you got youngsters listening to the show. Having people digging in the crates on YouTube.
I don't think we have.
They shot that video all in winter, like it was just snowing, and it's like I don't think they had the proper equipment to shoot it, so it's like it's blurry. And then, like,
for sure.
Snowflakes hitting the camera.
Mo D was like a thing,
Of course. With those visors he used to wear in the round hat. I think I'm gonna be him for Halloween.
His name's not Mike.
That's okay.
It's Mo.
I thought,
So it's a Mo party.
I thought Mo was short for Mike.
I'm sure it is. Complete this sentence. I don't have
I thought we had a
talent.
lightning round. This is some lightning.
It's our slowest lightning round yet.
Exactly.
We time these. We rank them in order. Complete this sentence. I don't have talent. I have blank.
Curiosity.
So if I worked for you, what is something I would hear you say?
That'll never happen. No, I'm just kidding.
What would I hear you say over and over?
Enjoy the process. I think if you're in the business of making ideas all the time and like 90% of them don't get made,
Yeah.
get frustrating. But like enjoy the process of creating. Any artist will tell you that.
Yeah.
And yes, there's frustrations that come with it, but find places to enjoy the process.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I find myself teaching the people that work for me is the like, we're not going to get to the ideas that we sell if we don't go through the ideas that we don't sell.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. And it's like, I mean, my favorite thing to do is brainstorm.
Yeah.
Like I just like, most people, if I sit down, we have a lunch or meet or like whatever, it's like you tell me, it's like, I don't know, I was gonna buy these shoes and I found them. I was like, oh, we should get the shoes. Like I'm automatically have 10 other ideas about how you should get those shoes.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're unwarranted ideas, and sometimes they're horrible. But but it's just like you gotta love the process of creating and interacting with people.
It's funny, I was going to ask you what your comedy background has done for you in business, but I think it's so obvious.
You have to read the introduction of the book.
Oh,
the first chapter is comparing innovation to stand-up comedy. But yes, what's obvious to you?
No, it's that being willing to get up there in front of people and fail
Yes.
and make,
So you knew I failed.
No, but but you have to be willing.
Yeah.
Did you ever bomb?
Of course. Probably bombed more than I didn't.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. I think there's that loneliness thing. Even that as just one pillar of exploration is like you are up there by yourself, and you have some inkling of an idea that this thing is about to be funny,
Right.
And it may or may not be. The client may or may not like this idea.
Sure.
And not only do I have to like deliver, well-informed and different pitch. Like if I'm making a joke about going out on a date, I also have to keep in mind that these people have probably heard thousands of dating jokes.
Yeah.
Right? Like men do this, women do that. It's like, but the fact that a Jerry Seinfeld can do it differently than Joe Blow is like, it's indicative of, no idea is like the most original thought.
Sure.
But it's the delivery, it's the connection with an audience. You're pitching an idea in a room. It's like, I have to know if that person's nodding off. I mean, I've seen people like their eyes closing, and I will call them out on it, just like you would in a comedy club. It's
Right.
Like, so I was giving a talk recently, and somebody got up in the front row to go to the bathroom, and I was like, "Where are you going?" And I followed her, and then was gone for maybe 10 minutes or whatever, and then I was like, all right, so let me bring you up to speed, when she came back in the room. So it's just like, and I don't think it has to be blatant, entertainment when you, from a business perspective,
Right.
But that thick skin of like, all right, I know some of this stuff was gonna go over well, and also know like, okay, you guys like the dick jokes,
Right.
or in this instance, it might be like, you like the artificial intelligence. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Right. So is just that ability to read and be flexible in a room despite whatever routine you have worked out in your head.
Man, I was in a new business meeting not that long ago, and the dude fell asleep.
Yeah.
Like the CEO that I was in the middle of my sentence fell asleep.
Yeah.
And his two guys after called me to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But regardless of that, since then I've beat myself up for like, I should have just said something to him.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I didn't. Whatever, for whatever reason, I wasn't comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure, I mean, who knows how everything would have turned out.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I would have felt better about the outcome had I just said something to him?
It's tough. I mean, it's kind of, you're touching on something we were talking about earlier. It's just like there's always a coulda, shoulda,
Yeah,
woulda.
of course.
And like, you're like, ah, man, and I think that's very, in stand-up, right, is similar to like being heckled. I remember the first time my mom came to see me do stand-up, and I didn't cuss. Like I didn't cuss at all. I was kind of square-ish. I didn't drink till I was 20, like my 21st birthday, like all this stuff. And so my mom came to see me do a show on campus, and it was maybe the first or second time I was getting heckled. And again, stand up, you're kind of doing repeat material. And one dude was like, I heard this one, and then he finished the joke kind of thing.
Oh shit!
And I froze because like my mom was there, and I was like, man, it's like if we were in the cafeteria, like 1,000% would have roasted, but my mom didn't know that part of me. Right. So it was like, my sister was also there, and she was like, you should have said, but I was like, it was. Oh, but I beat myself up for that one for a while. And then you got to if you have something else on your calendar a few weeks later on the same campus, like I hope that dude's not gonna be there again, right? But I think that always preps you for the next time because there will be somebody else who falls asleep. It's not gonna be.
Of course, exactly.
So now like, all right, this next time.
And that's all you can do, right? Is do it better next time. Who would you be most excited to learn as a fan of your work?
That's a long list. Can I be tender for a second? Probably my kids.
Okay.
Because as this platform grows and stuff like that, it's like, you're like, I think if you watch any like PR interview for like a movie tour or whatever, it's like, oh, my kids don't think I'm whatever. Like I do want my kids to to think that the stuff that I'm talking about. I took my daughter. This is dumb, but when I interviewed Chameleonaire, like she had a day off at school or whatever, and I brought her. That's cool. She fell asleep. Yeah. She fell asleep in like sitting like right, like maybe like 4 feet from the dude. I was like, because we're talking about hip hop and music and like all that stuff. And then that's funny. Yeah, but then there's other people, because we watch Adam Ruins Everything, which is a show on True TV, and we love that show. Yeah, it's a great show. I interviewed him. And she begged to go. Oh, yeah? Yeah, but I wouldn't take her out of stuff. Nah, you fell asleep last time. I hold grudges against my kids. As you nope. Nope. So that, and then maybe, I don't know, like the people I look up to in the space, like a Neil deGrasse Tyson, or I think about Will Smith a lot for some reason. Like, I think the dude, he'd been doing a great job of chiming in on things that he likes. Like he did some shout out to the Black Panther cast and crew recently. Nice. I mean, he's an innovator. Yeah, no, exactly. Sure. And like, when, the other version of that question is often, who would you most want to be like? He's usually like on my list, right? Of sort of hands in a lot of different things and that kind of stuff. So, I think those are. What's your favorite city to travel to? Miami and or Montreal. Okay. Montreal's on the list. I've never been there. Montreal, go to C2. Yeah. Montreal is, I don't know, it's just like so C2 I kind of jokingly call the poor man's Cannes. Okay. It's like the Cannes happens on the south of France, and it's like boats and like linen, and, all that stuff, which I've never been to. I'm just making it up for myself. You gotta go. It's what I think it is. No, it is. Okay, cool. I got it right. Moet popping like just. Yeah. I'm on a boat. Rosé. See? Rosé all day. I have no idea. Yeah, don't show up at Moet. It's a bad look. Show up with some barefoot. Look, I won an award. It's in a can. It's in a can. No, like it is like Montreal is just like this city, and there's a street like St. Catherine. It's kind of like it's a walkable street, but it goes on for miles. There's museums. They actually have the largest street art festival in the world. Really? Yeah, they get like 120,000 people that come. I'm gonna go to that. Yeah, forget C2. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go to that. You just stay for a month. It's like a month apart. Done. But then Miami is it's Miami. Miami's the best. And of course, Detroit.
Yeah,
It's
who
my
doesn't love
hometown.
Detroit?
A lot of people don't, but I do. Yeah, it's just like no, but funny.
I've only been once, and I went in February, which I'm told was a mistake.
So you hate Detroit? Yeah, that makes sense.
No, it was fine. It was just freezing.
Go in like the end of February when people like the.
I heard there's like great art and food, like all the signs of gentrification are
Yes,
showing
yes,
up.
yes.
Like coffee, like the coffee's amazing.
It's like white people. That's
Yeah.
the name of one of the restaurants.
I'm sure it is.
What do white people eat? Corn. But no, it's like it's just a city that's on a huge upswing and a lot of like amazing stuff.
I'm sure.
Happening there.
What book has had the biggest impact on you?
A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. I'm surprised it's not in my backpack right now because I started rereading it.
Really?
Yeah, it's. Remember I told you that period of my life where I was like, well, everything sucks. Which I think I'm still reliving.
She has one of my favorite quotes of all time, which I can't get right. But the thing about stop thinking you're too small,
Yep. Yeah.
or stop thinking you're too big.
We're actually afraid of our greatness because it's
Yeah.
like, but the concept is by being our biggest selves, we actually give permission to other people to, because we try to humble ourselves. We're like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be too great.
Yeah.
And it's like, but no, it's like you do it, and you're setting an example for somebody else.
Yeah.
That book is just like, it was like take your favorite album, and you're like, every line, like, oh, that was dope. Oh,
Okay.
wait, rewind that. What? And it came at the right time, right? And I think I followed that up with Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now.
Yeah.
And he told this one of my favorite stories in that book is when he's like, I was a psychology student, and he's like, I got on the bus, I was going to go to class, and probably had a half hour on the bus. Excuse me. And he said there was a crazy woman on the bus who was talking, and she was going on about how angry she was at her sister, and how could you do this to me? And obviously talking to nobody, but just like talking the whole time. And he was fascinated by it, and then he noticed he was getting off on the bus, and she was getting off at the same stop. Then they were walking in the same direction, and then he flips it, and he's like, I realized the only difference between us and her is that she's saying it out loud. It's like all these kind of things that we cycle through in our head. It's like they're just getting in the way of us being, open to new stuff. And that's just like, I don't know, 3 pages of story in that book. So just getting out of your own head, that was like a really big thing, at the right time.
Yeah. What movie have you seen the most in your life?
I thought of this morning. It's up there for sure. Is Hollywood Shuffle.
Okay.
Um,
That's such a great movie.
it's an amazing movie. That or Vacation.
Okay.
Vacation was like hands down. And whenever anybody asks me like, "What's your favorite movie or favorite comedy?" Is like Vacation. It's like every single moment of the movie is hilarious, and just the way the story progressed and finally they get on, complete the mission. And they've spent the 90 minutes trying to get to Wally World, this theme park, and then they get there and it's closed. So every hubcaps being stolen, relatives dying, dog got killed.
There's no dull moment in that movie.
But Hollywood Shuffle was just like, because I think in terms of sketches, right? Like the Halloween costume, like everything. I think I play out a scenario and it's just like a weird thing I do. And that movie was like a sketch comedy show. It was like, but it was one person's journey through all these different movies and moments. I was thinking of it because I don't even know why I thought of this morning, but there's a scene in there where they're trying to convince him to keep working at Winky Dinky Dog.
James, you seen this movie?
You
got to go watch Hollywood Shuffle.
This is your assigned learning.
Yeah.
Anybody who's listening to this right now, like that's a sign. That's a sign learning. Because he said. Because Tiny was a big fat dude that worked at the hot dog stand.
Yeah.
He's like, but Robert Townsend wanted to be an actor. And they're like, he's like, you thinking, he's like, look at me, I've been working for 3 years, now they let me lock up the place. You think any studio is gonna let you lock up the place? It's like, it's probably funnier when you see it.
I mean, that's such a great movie, and it's. I'm glad you said it because it's like people we've forgotten. People don't know who Robert Townsend is, right? Like
Yeah.
he's gone. I don't know
Ish.
where he went. Maybe not.
I'm
but,
sure he's doing something.
Okay. But we haven't
know
heard
what.
from him in a long time, is what I'm
Right.
saying. And people don't know that movie, and but it was, I think, such an important movie at its time.
Yeah.
And like and I think that even that genre doesn't really exist anymore.
Oh, look, dude. So what I really wanted to say, not necessarily that I saw them a lot, but like Kentucky Fried Movie.
Yeah.
Like all these
Groove
movies that
Tube.
like decided like, you know what, forget the format.
Right.
Forget the proper format of what a movie is supposed to be. It's
Yeah.
Kentucky Fried Movie, Amazon Women from
Yeah, on the Moon.
Yeah, Amazon Women on the Moon.
Yeah.
And it's just
I saw that like 20 times.
yeah. Oh
Sure.
my gosh. Donnie No Soul Simmons. And it was like all those three that I just named are kind of like, including Hollywood Shuffle, just decided to like break the rules. Like
Yeah.
we want to put something together. It may not fit the, first act, second act, third act.
Right.
Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back.
Yeah.
Like the formulaic process of what a movie should be. And it was just hilarious. It was just like,
So good.
whenever somebody gets, it's like that's the sort of creativity that we really celebrate. That's why things become cult classics.
Uh-huh.
It's because it's not necessarily mainstream. It's like I liked how they did that because I haven't seen that before.
Right.
And
Is there still room for that in culture today?
Yes, I think it happens every day. I think is the problem is that there's so much of it.
Right.
How many times have you stumbled upon something where you're like, that was genius, they should do that again, and you look, it's like 8 views, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, so it's harder to cut through the clutter.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to get into the bureaucracy of like entertainment, it's like because there's so much to pull from, everybody's kind of trigger shy, whatever the phrase is, because they need to hit, right?
Yeah.
The model is we're going to invest in 10 projects. One of them will blow up and pay for the rest of the experiments, right? But
Right.
that experimenting, the appetite for experimentation is like closing. So, but you just find like individual creators like, oh, I do this. Like, oh, I never would have even thought that was a thing
Yeah.
to begin with.
Yeah. Who's your favorite DJ?
Like which kind of DJ? You talking about elbow scratching
It's
DJ?
up to you.
Um,
Wedding DJ, bar mitzvah.
DJ Tanner from Full House. No, why am I drawing a blank on his name? First I got to give a shout out to DJ Mick Batisky, who's good guest on the show and also collaborating with me on the Crushing the Box mixtape.
Yeah, that's such a great idea to do a mixtape for a book.
Thank you very much. I try, I was like, one of the pressures of me writing this book was like, well, if I'm supposed to be the innovation guy, I better at least accent it with some things that are different.
Yeah,
But some of it
I
is
love
simple.
that.
Like one of the things I was talking to the publisher, I was like, does anybody ever put their like social media handle on the cover? And
Right.
it's like, I've never seen an at such and such on a book cover.
I feel like Gary, I can't picture it on, but I feel like Gary would have done that.
Well, you'll see it on mine, Josh.
Okay, good.
But there's DJ
But I'm going to go ahead and say that no one's done that.
Yeah, go ahead. So you say
Yeah.
it, just for purposes of hype. Why am I trying to blank on the dude's name? He used to do these dope mixtapes, and it was like scratching and blending. Like I missed those days where like a mixtape was like it was mixed and like
Yeah.
you got scratches and there's like dope transitions and you overland beats on lyrics and stuff like that. It's not Scribble. It's Qbert. Anyway, I'll bring it back up later. I can.
Yeah, mail it in.
Yeah, I'll. When this publishes, I'll like do an addendum.
That's right.
You're like DJ
So the book's out next month.
Yes.
Available at bookstores everywhere.
Yes. Amazon, Kindle. We're gonna be running a special in the first week.
Okay.
99 cents on Kindle.
Nice.
$9.90. That's a lot of nines. $9.99 for the hard copy.
Is that like your number or something? That's like there's like
Man,
your numerologist gave you that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for talking to me, man. This is fun. I could do it all day.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This is
So what's the social media handle that's going to be on the cover of the book?
Densonology,
Yes.
the study of oneself.
Nice.
DENSONOLOGY. And then www.thecrush.co for everything else.
Cool. Thanks, man. Come back. Let us know how successful the book was.
I will do that, and I will also let you know what I learned from it.
I'll expect that. Yes, that was Chris Denson on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Leave us a comment, a review on iTunes. Hit us on our social at Rebel Radio Net. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook. We got a YouTube page with videos from a lot of our interviews. And most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio.